Hello, and welcome to my Choose Your Own Adventure lab. For this lab, I chose to observe tennis superstar Rafael Nadal hit tennis balls while practicing. In this lab, I started by finding my video of Nadal. I then imported it into Tracker and calculated the velocity before and after the hit. And then modeled these in Python and used them to find the change in momentum and then thusly the net force of the ball, which ended up being negative 883.500. Next, we set the frame rate to be 420 frames per second and can now see Nadal hit the ball. Here you can see that I set my axes to have the origin right when he hits the ball, and also have calibrated using his tennis racket. Next, we must calculate the initial velocity, or the initial values, starting with the initial velocity and the final velocity. We calculate these using the information we collected from Tracker, and thusly come out with 9 meters per second in the x direction and negative 53.5 meters per second in the x direction as well in the initial and final velocities. We also find the ball's mass to be 0.057 and the force of gravity to be negative 9.8 times the ball's mass. We also know that our delta t is 0.004. Next, we insert our initial conditions by putting in the initial position of the ball from our video and the initial velocity. Next, we calculate our force of the bat, or the force of the racket. We calculate this by subtracting the initial velocity of the ball by the final velocity of the ball to get the change in velocity. We multiply the change in velocity by the mass of the ball to get the change in momentum. To get to the net force of the bat, we divide the change in momentum by the change in time, which is actually 0.004, not 0.04. So, now we put in all of this information into while loops. This first while loop will go through and update the ball's position based on the initial velocity before the ball is hit. The next while loop will go through as the ball is being hit, and thusly has a F-net that is affected by the racket hitting it. The last while loop will go through after the ball has been hit, and thusly, like the first example, the first while loop only has the force of gravity affecting it. We then run our code and find the path of the ball. So, what does this mean? Will Nadal make the ball over the net? Well, we can figure this out by figuring out the time it takes for the ball to hit the ground. So, the time to hit the apex of its curve is the velocity over the gravitational force, which is 0.5369 seconds. Multiplying this by 2, we end up getting back to the same height that it was originally hit at. We find that the distance in the x direction is then 57.245 meters. What does this mean? Well, the tennis ball will make it over the net, but will go past the net, or way past the court, because it is going past the length of the court by a lot. So what if? What if the tennis ball was twice as heavy? Well, the ball would follow the same pattern. However, if the ball was to become exponentially heavier, the racket would not have any effect on the ball, and the ball would only be slightly off. Thank you.